The meeting room fell silent as he began to speak. All eyes turned toward him. He believed he was winning. He said more than necessary. Each sentence peeled away layers of defense. Every word revealed his strategy. Every word unveiled hidden fears. His opponents smiled from the sidelines. They noted his vulnerabilities. No one intervened to stop him. In fact, they had been waiting for him. The one who speaks first hands over the advantage. The listener absorbs the words and calculates. In the end, he lost his position. Not because he was wrong, but because he had revealed everything. In the game of power, silence is currency. In the game of power, speaking first means losing. Machiavelli taught rulers this way. Power requires concealment. Power arises from information gaps. The one who controls the gaps holds the upper hand. Silence creates blind spots for opponents. They will fill them with assumptions. They will reveal their true intentions. Silence forces them to react. Silence makes others expose their weaknesses. This strategy isn't about the ethics of speech. It is a tool for those who rule. Wise leaders know to hold their words. They observe more than they explain. They measure every breath of their opponents. They wait for mistakes to emerge naturally. One well-timed sentence wins more than 10 meaningless ones. A pause holds value like a decree. Silence is both shield and trap. It protects and guides at the same time. The silent one is not indifferent. They act with calculation and purpose. They speak to create change, not to justify. Imagine yourself in that situation. You're debating in a tense meeting. You could speak right away or stay silent. Staying silent might be the powerful choice. But silence also requires art. It demands patience and clarity. The big mistake is silence out of fear. Silence must have purpose. Today we will learn how to use silence. We will turn the void into a throne. Have you ever lost ground just because you couldn't hold back your words? Comment yes, because Machiavelli certainly wouldn't have done that. Part 1. Words are the double-edged sword of the weak. Words are a double-edged sword. They cut both the speaker and the listener. Machiavelli said the wise speak little. They do not reveal their true thoughts. They make others believe they understand. Speaking too much exposes plans. Speaking too much exposes emotions. Speaking too much exposes weaknesses. In politics, words are weapons, but weapons that can turn against their master. Rulers win by keeping secrets. They reveal at the right time, to the right target. Imagine an impatient king. He declares a hasty law. His ministers and opponents know the plan in advance. They organize a counterattack in time. The king loses his strategic advantage, not by magic, but by the consequence of words. It's the same in everyday life. The one who shares too many factors. The one who voices a cunning strategic point. The one who exposes true emotions. They hand their opponent a loaded gun. The opponent just pulls the trigger. Many leaders have paid the price. They announced their intentions too early. They were immediately countered. History is full of such lessons. No list is needed to grasp the essence. The common lesson is clear. Speaking is an exposing action. Silence is preparing action. The silent one is accumulating power. They observe and calculate. They listen more than they argue. They know when to go public. They know when to surprise. Machiavelli taught to conceal objectives. Concealment creates power. Power comes from controlling information. Whoever controls information holds power. Rash disclosure is self-binding. Unripe words harm their master. A sentence can open the wrong door. A careless idea can shatter plans. Speaking to persuade is not always necessary. Persuading with action is sometimes better. Action with few words often yields lasting results. The wise use words like arrows. They aim with clear targets. They do not scatter words carelessly. Aimless words only help others. In negotiation, many words are a weakness. The excellent negotiator asks more than they speak. They listen to read the opponent's intent. They let the opponent reveal their hand. Finally, they choose the moment to speak. One timely sentence changes the game. A weighty statement can end it. Therefore, preparing words in advance is mandatory. Don't speak to explain yourself. Speaking to dominate is what matters. When you feel the need to justify, stop. Think carefully before speaking. Set a goal for every sentence you say. Turn words into strategic tools. Practice the habit of purposeful silence. When silent, gather information. When silent, observe the opponent's expressions. When silent, let them reveal their true nature. Silence is the tactic of the ruler. It is not for the cowardly. It takes courage to endure silence amid the temptation to speak. Purposeless silence is surrender. Purposeful silence is preparation. Learn to distinguish the two kinds of silence. Learn to turn silence into an advantage. Learn to speak one sentence strong enough to conclude. You don't need to speak much to win. You need to know how to speak to make others submit. Hold your words to hold power. And always ask yourself this question. When was the last time you said something that others exploited? Part 2. The art of silence, when control doesn't require action. True power lies in the ability to make others guess. Machiavelli mentioned this many times. The one who leaves a void holds the advantage. Silence creates a psychological blind spot. The blind spot makes opponents unable to predict. When unable to predict, they begin to fear. Fear erodes their self-control. Loss of self-control is loss of power. The silent one doesn't need much action. They use the void to steer events. The void becomes a strategic tool. Every silence is an unspoken question. The opponent tries to fill that silence. They fill it with hypotheses and hasty actions. Hasty actions expose vulnerabilities. Exposed vulnerabilities are when you gain advantage. Leaders know how to use pauses. They use it like a sophisticated trap. In politics, silence sows unease. Submission arises when unease is great. Respect sometimes stems from fear, or can be a tool of power. One who masters silence creates distance. Distance forces others to lower their voices. Distance makes them question themselves. They self-examine mistakes without reminder. The leader observes that reaction. Observation allows analysis of intentions. Analysis enables precise strikes. Silence is when information is gathered. This gathering is more valuable than many words. A hasty word can ruin an entire plan. A timely silence maintains superiority. The silent one shows they control the situation. They don't react emotionally. They let the opponent self-destruct. In the palace, the emperor often uses silence. He uses it to divide factions. Officials begin to suspect each other. Suspicion separates cliques. Separating cliques helps the king hold the throne. In business, the CEO also uses silence. One word reveals a competitive strategy. One silence makes the opponent self-expose. Today, silence remains an effective weapon. It requires no violence or attacks. It only needs patience and monitoring. Patience is the quality of the ruler. Monitoring is the work of the information apparatus. Leaders use silence to probe intentions. They probe to know who is real, who is fake. In negotiation, silence is a test. The one who answers hastily often loses out. The one who speaks too much often reveals goals. Holding silence forces the opponent to reveal more. Silence also has an art of expression. Gaze, eyes, and breath are all signals. Those small signals create pressure. That pressure makes the opponent lose composure. Loss of composure opens the door for you. You need to learn to read those expressions. Learning to read is learning to wield power. Avoid misunderstanding silence. Silence is not always weakness. Silence is not always moral. It is a means to achieve goals. The goal may be to preserve interests. The goal may be to test loyalty. The goal may be to wait for the moment to strike. When using silence, have principles. Principles set boundaries for behavior. Don't use silence to evade responsibility. Don't let silence become a cowardly habit. Silence must accompany the will to act. The will to act emerges when the opportunity arrives. At that time, one sentence can decide. One timely sentence changes the game. Thus, silence must be strategic. Learn to turn voids into weapons. Start with purposeful silence. Focus on observing more than speaking. Note attitudes, gestures, and tones. Pay most attention to unusual reactions. Unusual reactions often reveal intentions. When enough information is gathered, choose the moment to speak. That speech must be concise and weighty. One timely word is stronger than a barrage of empty ones. When silent, you force them to reveal their hand. They will expose strategies and contradictions. You just collect and decide. Your strength comes from the right to choose a reaction. You can remain silent forever or speak once. That decision must be based on greater benefit. Not everyone has the courage to be silent. Courage is needed to face pressure. Courage also requires wisdom to wait for the time. Machiavelli doesn't praise meaningless silence. He praises purposeful and calculated silence. Train yourself for strategic silence. Regard silence as an art form. You will see others easily rattled. You will see power gradually shift to your side. Have you ever met someone who made you uneasy with their silence? Ask yourself that next time you face it. Part 3. When silence becomes a tool for manipulating perception. This tactic is called the mirror trap. It stems from the art of observation. You stay silent so others speak. They begin to reflect on themselves. They say things they've hidden for long. They blurt out deep fears. They reveal their own weaknesses. You just need to listen. Silence becomes a subtle trap. When you don't respond, they fill the void themselves. They add details to convince themselves. Those details are often the truth, or pieces that expose vulnerabilities. The one who wants to hide ends up exposing themselves. The one who wants to manipulate leaves traces. In politics, the mirror trap is extremely effective. An emperor stays silent during an audience. Officials accuse each other to avoid blame. They fear being implicated. They speak of vague plots. From that, the ruler knows who is loyal. In negotiation, this technique is gold. When you are silent, the partner tries to score points. They reveal what they needed to keep secret. You gather information without spending words. That information creates a dominant position. You can naturally hold leverage. In relationships, silence can also be manipulated. A silent person makes the other shrink back. They explain all their actions. They expose loyalty or betrayal. Love and power intersect there. One unspoken question can be enough. The pause makes the opponent probe for signals. They read your gaze and expression. Then they speak to position the relationship. Those words give you the power to decide. You can use it to test hearts. You can use it to eliminate risks. The mirror trap exploits inherent insecurity. When there's no information, the brain creates stories. Those stories often exaggerate fears. Fear leads to hasty actions. Hasty actions reveal contradictions. Contradictions become evidence for you. Manipulators are exposed by themselves. They depend on the victim's reaction. When no reaction comes, they lose direction. Loss of direction leads to major mistakes. That mistake is your opportunity to decide. The mirror trap requires no violence. It needs patience and observation. It requires the ability to endure stress. You must learn to hold the silence. You must train the reflex not to respond immediately. You must practice eyes that read people. When done right, you gather valuable facts. Those facts help you steer the situation. You don't reveal your own plans. You let the opponent have the right to imagine wrongly. They cast themselves as the guilty party. They accuse themselves without knowing. In elections, politicians use this ploy. They let opponents talk more about their mistakes. Voters listen and remember those shortcomings. The silent one then switches to attack. A timely attack destroys the opponent's credibility. In business, leaders stay silent to test loyalty. Employees rush to explain and expose damage. Leaders use the information to reallocate power. The mirror trap is also a loyalty test. The one who speaks much may blurt out guilt. The silent one verifies those words. They don't need to coerce with orders. They let behavior accuse the person. This technique forces you to maintain a cold demeanor. It doesn't suit those with low stress tolerance. It demands intellect more than emotion. You need to know when silence is a risk. You must also know when silence is an advantage. Wrong decisions about pauses can backfire. Don't use the mirror trap when the opponent is resolute. Don't use it when safety is threatened. In public discussions, selective skills are needed. You must have a supporting information network. You need sources to verify what they say. Don't decide based on gut feeling alone. The mirror trap's effectiveness also depends on the environment. It works strongly in unstable contexts. In chaotic times, people lose composure easily. Pauses crack disguises faster. But in peacetime, it requires more finesse. You must consider ethics in each case. Machiavelli doesn't advocate meaningless cruelty. He praises those who know how to use tools. Tools must serve long-term goals. The mirror trap is a tool to preserve power. It helps you select partners and eliminate risks. It's not just for causing harm. Using this tool demands responsibility. Silence must be accompanied by clear action. When the opportunity comes, you can't hesitate. A timely counterattack ensures victory. In summary, the mirror trap turns silence into an art. It makes opponents reveal their true nature. It helps you gather evidence and make a choice. It turns blank spaces into foundations of power. Have you ever made others justify themselves without you saying a word? Part 4. The Master of Silence, the Model of the Ruler. The Master of Silence is the model of the ruler. Machiavelli calls that person the prince. The prince knows when to speak. The prince knows when to stay silent. The prince uses silence as a tool. Silence is a strategy for him. It is not clumsiness. It is not fear. It is a calculated choice. Imagine a silent meeting room. The leader sits still, observing. His gaze sweeps across the room. One look is enough to stop speech. His gestures are small but full of meaning. A frown can replace words. Even breathing shows calm. His pauses carry weighty decisions. Every detail becomes a signal. Those signals create influence. Others wonder what he is thinking. They form hypotheses about his intentions. Self-generated hypotheses disorient them. They begin to act cautiously. They adjust their words and gestures. That is the power of silence. The prince knows how to use pauses. He does not reveal his true goals. He gives opponents space to fear. In politics, this is essential. A silent leader easily inspires awe. People respect the reserved one. People also fear the unreadable one. Elusiveness is a great advantage. The unpredictable becomes the dominant force. The prince exploits this fully. He uses silence to divide groups. He uses silence to test loyalty. One unspoken question can be enough. When he looks at someone, that person self-incriminates. When he is silent, others accuse each other. In the court, silence causes cracks. Officials become confused and suspicious of each other. Suspicion breaks alliances. Breaking alliances is how the ruler maintains position. In negotiation, the prince acts similarly. He stays silent when probing is needed. He makes the partner speak more. The partner unwittingly reveals weaknesses. That information allows the prince to take initiative. The prince rarely displays strength. He reserves it for decisive moments. One timely sentence has great value. One timely statement can end it. The prince teaches that silence creates blind spots. Blind spots force others to speculate. Speculation reflects their insecurities. They project insecurities onto you. They predict wrongly and act mistakenly. That is when you gain an advantage. The mirror trap is a complementary method. Silence forces others to reflect on themselves. They say what they fear most. They expose and incriminate themselves. The prince uses the mirror trap in every situation. In politics, it helps distinguish factions. In negotiation, it reveals valuable information. In emotions, it tests loyalty. You let the opponent fill the void. They fill it with revealing words. You just record that information. Finally, you decide based on the benefit. The leader does not stay silent uselessly. He stays silent to observe and analyze. He extracts facts from the opponent's words. He uses facts to arrange the next steps. Silence must be accompanied by an information network. The prince does not rely on pure intuition. He has people to gather and verify information. He uses silence when the environment is favorable. He avoids silence when safety is threatened. Silence in danger is reckless. The prince knows to distinguish opportunity from risk. The art also lies in nonverbal expression. Gaze, breathing, and posture create pressure. A prolonged look makes others uneasy. Even breathing conveys decisiveness. A pause increases the weight of words. When he thinks the opponent will rush, he waits. When the opponent shows contradiction, he acts. Action after silence is often decisive. The prince speaks to dominate, not to justify. His words must be short and weighty. His statements must shift the balance of power. Practice purposeful silence. Practice observing instead of reacting immediately. Practice turning pauses into tools of speculation. Practice analyzing every small expression. When enough facts are gathered, speak once. One strong sentence silences the opponent. That is how the prince maintains control. But there are mistakes to avoid. Do not stay silent out of fear or laziness to think. Do not use silence to evade responsibility. Mindless silence will lose credibility. Purposeless silence is covert surrender. The prince does not praise cowardice. He praises calculation and purposeful courage. Learn from this image of the prince. Learn to read people through their silence. Ask yourself when facing strength, have you ever stayed silent and made the whole room wait for your words? Remember that next time you hold the floor. Have you ever made others justify themselves without you saying a word? Part 5. The Machiavellian effect, when silence makes others self-destruct. Silence activates the brain's storytelling mechanism. People dislike information voids. When facts are lacking, they start imagining. Those imaginations are often worse than reality. The mind fills with doubt. Doubt turns into fear and confusion. Fear impairs judgment. Those who lose composure act hastily. Hasty actions create obvious mistakes. Those mistakes become evidence for you. You don't publicly seize power. They hand it to you through their reactions. Machiavelli understood this law long ago. He saw that silence generates power. Today, psychology explains the mechanism. The amygdala activates strongly when information is scarce. When the amygdala fires, reason weakens. People shift from reasoning to reaction. That reaction is often defensive or aggressive. Both reveal their true nature. The defensive one exposes weaknesses and fears. The aggressive one appears hostile but reveals greed. Silence turns the opponent into their own accuser. They speak to reassure themselves. They speak to fill the unease. Every sentence is a valuable clue. You quietly collect those clues. Finally, you have a clearer picture. You just need to wait for the decisive moment. In politics, opponents hastily expose themselves. They try to explain their strange actions. Those explanations unwittingly erode their credibility. Voters listen and remember the flaws. The silent leader transforms the facts. He uses them to position the next strategy. In negotiation, the partner hastily reveals their hand. They speak more than necessary to prove themselves. Those words give you negotiation leverage. You can trade for conditions in your favor. In business environments, silence tests employees. Those who rush to blame are easily eliminated. Those who stay silent too long may be fearful. Silence also sorts loyalty groups. The loyal ones usually keep a straight face and stay silent. Opportunists often blurt out to protect themselves. You need to read those nuances. Silence also makes allies wary. They guess you are calculating something bigger. That speculation subtly divides alliances. Division helps the ruler solidify their position. Not everyone can endure the pause. Some react with strong emotions. Those emotions lead to more mistakes. You exploit the mistakes to reinforce your plan. Silence also has a psychological domino effect. One unusual reaction triggers widespread impact. The more confusion spreads, the more power tilts toward you. However, silence is not always safe. Sometimes silence erodes credibility. Silence when action is needed backfires. You must know when to end the silence. The decision to speak must be based on information. Information gathered through silence must be verified. Don't act based on gut feeling alone. Machiavelli advised weighing benefits and harms. The art is balancing the two states. Silence makes opponents self-destruct in many cases, but sometimes it exposes your vulnerabilities. Know the context before using silence. Assess the instability around the situation. Determine if the opponent is easily provoked. Reading nonverbal cues is crucial. Eyes, gestures, and tone provide signals. Small signals are major indicators. Gather evidence before decisive action. Action after silence must have clear goals. A well-timed strike creates maximum impact. Conversely, hasty action makes you lose ground. So calculate carefully before speaking. Regard silence as a strategic tool. Use it to draw opponents into a self-exposure trap. Use it to test loyalty and intentions. Use it to divide opposing alliances. Use it to gather material for counterattacks. But always remember, responsibility comes with power. Don't exploit silence to destroy without cause. Using this tool can have consequences. Machiavelli respected ethical pragmatism. Sustainable power requires considering long-term consequences. Silence gives you a temporary advantage. That advantage must be converted into a lasting position. Plan the next step after silence. Prepare actions to solidify the new position. Don't let the pause be just an empty moment. Clear conclusions are what you must aim for. You don't seize power through violence. They hand power to you through reactions. And you just need to capitalize on the opportunity. Next time, don't respond. Let them fill the silence with their fear. Part 6. When silence is misunderstood, the trap of weakness. Machiavelli warns that those who stay silent out of fear are prey. Those who stay silent, understanding the game, are hunters. The two types of silence are completely different. One is a purposeful strategy. One is an unwitting submissive reflex. Recognizing the difference is crucial. Strategic silence always has a goal. Submissive silence often arises from fear. Fear of disapproval makes many stay silent. They choose safety over power. But safety comes at a cost. Staying silent out of fear strengthens others' power. You gradually lose your voice in relationships. You let others decide for you. The words you don't use become opportunities for them. They define you through the void you leave. And then you become the manipulated one. Submissive silence creates dependency zones. Others learn you don't resist. They continue to impose their will. This situation escalates daily. That is the trap Machiavelli warns about. Conversely, strategic silence is calculated. The strategically silent one retains choice. They observe, gather, and decide. They don't let voids rise uncontrolled. They know when to clarify with action. They know when one word is enough to shift the game. Purposeful silence is a tool of power. It helps you test hearts and categorize people. It allows you to verify information. It helps you prepare for the next step. The key is the intent behind the silence. Intent determines the impact of the pause. Without intent, silence becomes a weakness. Thus, self-questioning is necessary. Are you silent to observe or to deny? Are you silent to protect self-respect? Or are you silent out of fear of losing the other? If out of fear, be more cautious. Fear is a signal to change strategy. Don't let fear guide your reactions. When silence stems from fear, seek allies. Find ways to express in safe forms. Find channels to register opinions and respond later. Don't let silence drag on indefinitely. In work environments, submissive silence is harmful. You get overlooked in important decisions. You become a target for pay cuts or layoffs. In personal relationships, submissive silence damages. You gradually get imposed upon and lose identity. Children learn that silence is how to survive. You become a diminished version of yourself. Machiavelli does not praise cowardice. He praises calculation and decisive courage. This doesn't mean aggression or cruelty. It is about using tools to preserve goals. Silence needs discipline and principles. Principles help you avoid turning silence into cowardice. Principles also help you use silence effectively. First, define the goal when staying silent. Second, verify information gathered during silence. Third, set a time limit for the pause. Don't let the pause drag on meaninglessly. Fourth, prepare for action instead of evasion. Action complements strategic silence. Without action, silence will be misunderstood. Practice courage to end silence when needed. Courage isn't always shouting. Courage can be a short statement. Courage is also a firm decision. Colleagues and allies must understand your intent. Internal communication helps avoid misunderstandings. In organizations, transparency is sometimes necessary. Not all information must be concealed. Wisdom is knowing when to be transparent. Avoid overusing silence for aimless manipulation. Over-manipulation destroys long-term bonds. Sustainable power rests on credibility. Credibility is lost when others feel deceived. Machiavelli acknowledges pragmatism in action, but he also notes long-term consequences. Using silence must consider social costs. Think about relationships and reputation. Don't turn silence into a fixed attitude. Practice purposeful silence daily. Form hypotheses before staying silent. Observe reactions and note signals. Verify facts before deciding. Establish personal principles for silence. When you have intent, silence becomes a weapon. When you fear, silence becomes a trap. Ask yourself every time before staying silent. Are you silent to observe or to be spared? This question helps you choose wisely. Use silence to preserve power. And always remember to tie power to responsibility. Part 7. Mastering Silence, the Ruler's Strategy. Observation is the first step of every power strategy. Before opening your mouth, look carefully. Observe eyes and gestures around you. Note who speaks frequently. Note who avoids direct eye contact. Pay attention to their tone and breathing rhythm. When you spot signs of unease, take note. Gather small facts before concluding. Don't let emotions guide your actions. Analysis is the next step after observation. Arrange facts by level of importance. Find contradictions in their words. Compare behavior with actual statements. Those whose words differ from their actions are often dishonest. Those who speak much often have goals to hide. Analysis helps you understand the power structure. It reveals who can be manipulated. It points out weaknesses to exploit. After analysis, choose the moment to act. Timing is more important than the content of words. A wrong word at the wrong time fails. A right word at the right time has transformative power. Timing must be based on gathered facts. Wait until the opponent slightly loses control. When the opponent rushes, patiently wait. Wait until they expose themselves. When they have exposed, prepare to speak. Strike with a single sentence. That sentence must be short and weighty. It must immediately change perceptions. It must reframe the situation. One timely sentence ends the debate. One mistimed sentence can backfire. Practice purposeful silence daily. Start by staying silent for 10 seconds. Gradually increase the silence time each time. Practice silence in small meetings. Practice silence before personal reactions. The goal is to train the reflex not to respond immediately. While silent, observe every detail. Learn to read subtle nonverbal signals. Pay attention to hard-to-control movements. A hand touching the face may signal anxiety. A slight step back may signal retreat. Remember behavior patterns over time. Compare the reactions of the same person multiple times. Repeating patterns gives you a deeper understanding. When you force the opponent to reveal themselves, don't attack hastily. Hold the facts and wait for the moment to maximize value. Attack when everyone is unprepared. Your words then will be effective. They will leave the opponent unable to justify. This approach requires patience and knowledge. You need to understand the consequences before striking. Prepare contingency plans for unexpected reactions. If the opponent counterattacks, you must have evidence. Don't let public opinion bury your information. Keep evidence discreetly. Use allies to verify facts. Allies help you strengthen information before going public. They increase credibility for your statements. Don't speak without verification. A baseless word will lose credibility. Lost credibility is hard to regain in politics. The ruler must balance silence and action. Silence is to prepare for a decisive strike. Action is to turn advantage into lasting power. The final word is often the decisive one. It should be carefully crafted and refined. Test that sentence with allies first. Gather feedback to adjust wording. A weighty sentence needs clear implications. Avoid lengthy words that dilute impact. Avoid over-explaining after speaking. The ruler speaks to control outcomes. They don't speak to justify or apologize. Practice self-discipline under pressure. Discipline helps you maintain purposeful silence. Emotion management is part of the strategy. When angry, don't speak immediately. When anxious, don't vent on others. Use silence as a filtering net. Filter bad information before official reaction. Official reactions need careful calculation. Prepare suitable communication plans in advance. A statement needs support from actual actions. Actions reinforce words and vice versa. There is no universal formula for every situation. Each case needs a separate context assessment. Practice this reflex in small situations. Start with family and close colleagues. When mastered, apply on larger scales. Large scales need additional information networks. Networks help you verify and spread information. They also reduce risks when you go public. Learn from mistakes and adjust tactics promptly. No one wins completely in one step. Power is a chain of persistent decisions. Strategic silence is one of the tools. Use it to gather, analyze, and attack. The strong don't speak little to save words. They speak at the right time, so others must listen. They know how to speak to determine the outcome. In the next confrontation, try speaking last. Conclusion. Silence is the throne of those who know how to wait. Machiavelli taught that long ago. Silence is not meaningless. It is a design tool of power. The silence of the weak is begging. They stay silent in exchange for mercy. They stay silent out of fear of losing face. The result is they gradually lose their voice. The silence of the strong is a declaration. It asserts power without explanation. The strong stay silent to force others to reveal. They turn voids into sources of information. They turn voids into shields. They stay silent to observe and gather. They predict and correct before speaking. One timely sentence has a great effect. It changes perceptions and breaks alliances. Sustainable power comes from calculation. That calculation stems from patience. Patience is the asset of the ruler. Not everyone possesses that quality. Those who want power must cultivate patience. Distinguish your purpose when staying silent. Silence needs clear goals and principles. Don't let silence turn into surrender. Don't let silence be seen as weakness. Transparency also has a role when needed. Sometimes you must break the silence. That breaking must carry weight. Speech needs evidence and strategy. Not speaking without facts is wise. Speaking when prepared is powerful. Practice observation before reacting. Learn to read eyes, gestures, and tone. Note behavior patterns across situations. Practice purposeful pauses daily. Practice speaking one sentence strong enough to change. Build a reliable information network. Use allies to reinforce official statements. Power requires responsibility and long-term vision. Don't exploit silence for senseless destruction. Power loses value when it harms reputation. Consider the social consequences of actions. Silence must serve sustainable goals. When used correctly, silence brings freedom. When used wrongly, silence turns you into prey. Now is the time to decide on your mindset. Do you want to be heard or make others listen? Shift from wanting to be heard to forcing others to listen. Turn the void into your own throne. Comment, I choose the silence of power. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.